time, Paula?
Well, I got 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. The committee of the whole meeting for Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. Pastor Mo.
Let us pray. Oh God, in confidence and trust, we come in prayer this evening. We pray for our community. Inspire with your wisdom those whose decisions affect the lives of others. Bless all who lead, who protect, who serve the community in which we live. We pray for our nation in this election week. Engender within us a spirit of kindness and plant within our hearts a growing hope that we can serve the common good while caring for one another. Breathe fresh life into us that we may be guided by the spirit of community, the spirit of justice, and above all, the spirit of love. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brandon, roll call, please.
Rothschild? Here. Kennett? Crow?
Here.
Barnhart? Wachtel?
Here.
James?
Here.
Samowski?
Here.
Arnold?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Moving on, public comments. City ordinance allows members of the public to speak and give input up to 3 minutes. During public comment, there can be no action or debate by the city council at this time. Are there any members of the public? Welcome.
Do I stand
Yep.
on this side?
Or you can
With
say
my-
it from the bottom.
Okay.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Tina Hernandez, and I have the loan proposal in for Nosh, Good Mood Food, which is a natural, organic, specialty, healthful market here in town. And I had this idea last year from a small store that started in Prophetstown. And I have Hashimoto's, so when I would come to visit, I just moved from California. When I would come to visit, I would have to source my food there. So it serves a small specialty niche. It doesn't compete with, it competes slightly with other grocery stores, but for the most part, it has its own niche. It's for people that need to be gluten-free, or on paleo, keto, whatever. So I just wanted to put a face with the name, and I'll be back to answer any questions later.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
They can't see your face.
Hello, my name is Kelly Wolf. I am on the agenda later on with the revolving loan program, the one labeled caffeine and carbs. I grew up in Geneseo. All of my family is still here. I went to school at Purdue University and then moved to Houston, Texas, where I spent the last 11 years at the convention center, working in an arrangement of different food service, and then also the director of convention services. With COVID, how it is, devastated the convention industry, and we don't have any conventions right now and probably won't for at least another year. I wanted to do something, and growing up here, I always wished we had a Starbucks, so this is my way of doing that. It'll be not Starbucks, but it'll be a brand of coffee, Cat's Coffee, and then also New York style bagel sandwiches for lunch, and then a full service bakery with the different arrangements of cupcakes, cakes, muffins, and everything else. So that will be on your agenda later. I'll stay around in case you have any questions when you get to that.
You said you're gonna have New York bagels?
Yes,
Are we gonna complement those with lox?
I can look into that.
Well, I'm just saying, I can't find lox. And I grew up with lox, and I can't find it anywhere, so. If
Lox
you-
and
if you
bagels
did
were
that,
always
you would have a
popular.
repeat customer.
All right, I will definitely look into that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Chief, are there any more members of the public? Okay, thank you. Moving on, item number 6, mayor's comments. Good news is always good to set the tone. I'm happy to report that the city of Geneseo has been awarded for the 8th year in a row the GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and in financial reporting. Joe, anything you want to add, or?
Just congratulations to Jamie,
Yep.
did it again.
Also briefly, under mayor's comments, I was thinking about the meeting tonight quite a bit. I think just to kind of set the tone perhaps, or I would just like to maybe challenge every member of council as we go through our discussions tonight to maybe reprogram your view from simply looking at this budget and thinking about fulfilling and satisfying with what we need to do for 2021. I think it's important that we start to think about how the budget of today, or for tomorrow in this case, lays the groundwork for what work we have to do in the future. Because there's a couple of items, one of which is on the agenda we'll talk about a little bit later, that we need to be awfully mindful of what we do today or don't do today and how that's going to affect 2022, 3, 4, and so on going forward. So just try to be a little different minded, I guess would be the right word, and as we go through some of these discussions about revenue and where we're at and what we're doing, think about, where's that get us for the next year, and kind of just lay that groundwork, and just a challenge to everybody here. Moving on, city council comments. Any members of the council that have any comments? Craig?
Those of you who know me know that I'm somewhat of an aggressive type of person. I don't like to quietly walk around issues, but rather dive right in and find a solution. The town council has allowed me the opportunity to see things from both resident and city employee aspects, and has opened my views and opinions. So this is what I have to say. We are currently in a battle on 2 fronts: COVID and every other community surrounding Geneseo, including the Quad Cities. On one side, we are battling budgetary constraints with this virus, to which we, as of this writing, know no end. On the other side, we are battling every other community to be the community people want to move to or open a business in that will help their local economy and budget. Many times I have sat in this chair and listened to the public and even fellow councilmen poo-poo ideas that are brought up to help the city of Geneseo with revenue generation and quality of life improvements. As I grind my teeth listening to how they want to keep Geneseo just the way it is, right now every community is battling the same economic strife we are. I say now is the time to go on the offensive, become creative, and find ways to attract more people and businesses to Geneseo. We have tabled several capital projects that would improve Geneseo. Why? No revenue. I challenge every person in this room tonight or listening online to bring one idea to the floor for discussion. Will they all be good? Probably not. Will we look at each one with open minds? I would hope so. Will we implement every idea with success? No. But Wayne Gretzky, a Hall of Fame hockey player, once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you never take." In the next year, as we deal with budgetary constraints, I would like to hear not only concerns from everyone, but ideas that will help Geneseo win both battles and put Geneseo on a solid foundation to which we will grow. Will Geneseo remain the same? No. It will be better.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on, city administrator comments.
I just want to point out one thing, it's kind of a housekeeping thing, but I had a few extra hours, but I got ambitions, and so I transferred information from the agenda cover sheets to the next meeting. So when you're looking on what type of motions to make, don't look at the motion on the cover sheet, because that motion is for the next city council on November 10th. Look at the motion that is on your agenda, which I'll always go back to that. So that's all.
Your orders there?
You wanna always look here on the agenda cover page
Yeah,
for the motions to be made,
right.
because the agenda report cover
Oh, I see.
is actually for November 10th. I didn't realize once this was published that it would go back and change it, the agenda cover page. So I thought it would have stayed stagnant, and it didn't. It changed it. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yeah, so the motion, you go over the split screen and go to that one?
You want the motion from the agenda, not the cover page.
Okay, got it. Very good.
Okay,
That's all, Joe?
that's it?
We'll move on. Item number 9, administration. 9.1, discussion of ordinance O-20-34, approving the final development plan for the Geneseo townhomes.
So we do have Rick to go through this, and Adam is here from Fair Development, and I can answer questions also.
So on October 12th, the Plan Commission reviewed the final review for the PUD for the second, I guess you'd call it the second phase, or the first phase of the townhomes, Geneseo townhomes. I've been out at the Geneseo Commons several million times, it seems like, with the senior center, and these people are doing a really quality job, and I'm excited about the second project because it brings families into the picture. The Plan Commission had no concerns when they reviewed it. I'll let Adam talk a little bit more, he's more up on it, but they bought extra ground because as part of our northeast drainage, part of our issue comes from the schools and their retention, under retention, whatever you want to call it, but so a lot of that water from the junior high, high school area is going to be coming through their next project, so they bought extra ground. They're going to oversize their retention and help us, the city out, really, by catching some of that school water, retaining it and releasing it at the rates that our ordinance requires them to release it at. So they've also, when we had the initial Geneseo Commons, what's up there now, the senior commons, there were some citizens concerned with the sewer going to the Ash Street lift station, which we're replacing. You'll hear the bids on that tonight, but then now with these added 60 more units, or 40 more units, sorry, that's taking even more there. So as part of this project, we are looking at changing the forced main that goes to, it's a Cherry Street forced main is what it's called. And Bear is working with us on looking at the design and the costs on that. So, I mean, we can't ask for a better developer. They're all excited about helping us try to get our infrastructure up to par to accept these units. And this is 40 more meters. So I'll let Adam take over from here.
Sure, and I don't know what's in the packet or not, but the area that we're talking about, the senior deal that's under construction right now is here. So it's just to the west of that. It's all cornfield right now, but we're proposing doing 40 townhome style units. So the units themselves will look something like this, where each one has attached garage with it, one cell garage. There'll be 8 unit buildings, 5 different 8 unit buildings, and all constructed in that area to the west of where the senior development is now. So the pond that Rick was talking about is here. Part of the concern that we had when we were in front of you, I think back in February, was that there's a lot of runoff that comes from this area here, and making sure that we have sufficient capacity on site. So working with our engineer, we've sized that to be 250% of what the requirement says. So if the requirement says we need to capture 100, we're capturing 250. So trying to go above and beyond there to try to provide a solution for that whole area, not just for the site that we're putting in. The development itself is a mix of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units, it'd be 20 of each. There's a mix of affordability with the units, anywhere from $500 to $900 on the 2-bedroom, $600 to about $1,100 on the 3-bedroom. So it's really targeting that workforce housing range. I don't know if is it a separate with the development agreement or is that talked about here? Oh, okay. So Rick mentioned the additional area of the rerouting the sewer line. So as part of this, we would enter into a development agreement similar to the senior deal, where we're agreeing to extend the roadway that you can see. As part of the senior deal, we extended the roadway to here to access the senior site. We would be extending it the rest of the way to the end here. Once that is completed, we would dedicate that. We bill it to the city spec to dedicate it back to the city when completed. And then the portion of the infrastructure that would have to be done for rerouting the sanitary, we're working with IMEG on estimates for that and doing the engineering, and committed to find a solution, cover the cost to reroute that to be able to accommodate the additional 40 units. Anything missing?
Nope, that's it.
Color schemes are gonna be similar to what is out there with the
Yeah, these are
senior building.
a couple of it's blues and grays. The senior building is more dark blue, so using similar color schemes to what we have for
Is the senior one done now?
It's close. We're targeting occupancy toward the end of January. We started our marketing and lease up, and there's been a ton of activity for it. So we're hoping that the senior building finishes up in late January, and then we start construction on this one, kind of overlapping in January.
So with the senior, you're looking at pretty close to 100% capacity? As far as, were you renting them? The senior ones are rented.
Yeah, all rental for the senior building.
These are all rentals too?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, all rental.
What was the average price again on the new ones?
It ranges from 500. There are a handful at 500 for a 2-bedroom. Most of them are at 900. And then for a 3-bedroom, a few are at 600. The majority are 1050 to 1100. And that's connected garage and try to make it nice spacious units. Units themselves are about 1,350 square feet, so decent size for the 3-bedroom, and the 2-bedroom are somewhere in the 1,100 square foot range.
Adam, thanks for being so cooperative with the city on the drainage and all that stuff out there. We really appreciate that. Another question, if people ask where to go to find out about your development there, where do they go?
For the senior ones, I still think we have flyers.
Yeah, we got flyers up here.
Yeah, we made a flyer and we put it on the front. We'll do the same for the family. I think for a while, our leasing agent was Joe and Rick. They're getting a lot of phone calls about the senior,
So do you have online?
And then everything's taken online, yep. So the management for both of these will be run in the senior building. The senior building has a management office in it, so we'd have one site manager that manages both the senior building and the townhomes, and then a full-time maintenance person as well that covers both. In the lease-up, we'll have a pamphlet here, flyer here for the city, but everything is routed online. There's a website now for the senior that's set up that has the floor plans and the renderings, and you can apply right online.
By the way, I already got my item for revenue, just to approve this thing. Not
Always bring a lot of idea.
Yeah, so that's what we need, is stuff like this.
Hey, Jack, could you briefly explain to council the force main, just how it's gonna work conceptually from Cherry over to?
We're working with Adam and IMA are developing, we're working on easements and running the Cherry Street lift station over to Prairie View lift station currently. That'll alleviate any concerns we possibly have with the gravity sewer line on Chicago Street.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to key on, so the council remember the conversation about the concern from Cherry and Chicago, basically now to the new lift station, that this would alleviate that concern, or?
Correct. And we have accepted bids on, McClintock was awarded the bid last council meeting. All submittals have been done, and we're just waiting lead time on pumps and stuff to be ordered. And so we will probably start December, January on the replacement of Ash Street lift station.
And that, the rerouting too is gonna reroute both the senior building and the townhomes, right, so that none of it's gonna go to the lift station that the senior building currently is.
No, it'll still go to the Ash Street.
Lift station.
Reroute it from there.
Correct. there to Cherry and Hickory and then to Cherry and down, correct, Jeff?
Repeat that again? So
Went to Cherry and Hickory.
yeah, Olivia Drive goes down to Mulberry, which goes north directly to Ash Street Lift Station. That will still continually go that way. What we're rerouting is probably 75 homes will come off of that, go to Cherry Drive Lift Station. That Forest Main dumps up to Chicago Street and Cherry will be omitted off there. And it will be rerouted to Prairie View Lift Station. So our pumping capacities and run times, which will not overload the 10-inch gravity line on Chicago Street.
So it's making the, I just wanted to get it out there for especially Keith and Martin, since there's been trouble in there, that we're lessening the load, or distributing that load in two different ways
Correct,
versus.
it will still go to Ash Street Lift Station that we're currently redoing and oversizing. It's gonna alleviate the gravity downstream sewer from overloading that.
Adam, on the second project here, what's the anticipated start date and then finish?
Yeah, earliest we start construction is January, it's just weather dependent. Our goal is to close in December and then start construction as soon as we can after that, so weather depending. So January. And then the buildings will be completed in phases. It's not all coming at the same time, so the first building is probably around 10 months. So late next year, and then every 30 days or so after that, another building will be finished.
How many buildings will be done?
Say that.
5 buildings, so it's 5 8-unit buildings, yeah.
Say that slow again. The start date is.
Yeah, so start date, let's just say it's January of 21, and then like we'd finish this building, call it November 1st of 21, then finish this building, finish this building, and just rotate it on the site. So not all of it's gonna be done at the same time. We'll roll the trades through each of the buildings and bring them online, you know, every 20 days, 30 days, once the first one is brought online.
Will there be any parks between the buildings or, you know, areas for congregation?
Yeah, so the area that we have identified is here. It'll be a large green area. So the senior building here, there's that hedge here.
Right.
There'll be some landscaping between them there, and then this area, it's a large green space, so like a pavilion there and spots for kids to run around. But we try to leave sufficient green space behind too, and space the buildings out there.
And the Olympic swimming pool is where?
No Olympics swimming.
Next to the pickleball court.
What's the school be in relation to that building, for example?
School's down here, like church is here, school's here.
Okay,
So what kind of an interest have we had in the building that you've got almost done now?
Really strong.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a different population, it's all seniors, so it's restricted senior for the senior building. This would be families who are serving a different population, but a lot of demand for the senior unit so far.
So what's considered senior?
It depends, yeah, 55 plus or 62 plus.
What was that?
55 and over, there are different definitions of senior, it could be 55 or 62 plus.
So what's the demos on this one?
They could be 18, could be 70.
And this isn't, what?
No.
Okay. Got it.
Any further questions or discussion?
Will we be getting any kind of a better drawing that we can kind of refer to over and over again, you know, in the future? We can have
Yes.
something that we can actually sit there and go, this is where we are, this is where we're planning on being, this is the next phase. Instead of looking at that, which is kind of hard for everybody here to see, if we could have something that would be, that each alderman can have, so that they can sit there and actually look at the area you're talking about at the time, it would be really helpful.
And packets, you referred?
Yeah, in our
It's
package we
in
have.
your pack, yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't see that, my fault.
All the attachments.
There's a lot of attachments
Yeah,
I'm
to
sorry?
this one.
there's quite a few attachments for this one.
Okay.
It's not surprising.
Perhaps you just missed it.
I did miss it, I'm sorry, my fault, excuse me.
Motion to recommend the city council ordinance 02034 to put on the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Arnold, second by Kenneth. Roll call.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Wachtel,
yes.
James,
Yes.
Sabowski,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Moving on, item 9.2, discussion of resolution R-20-29 of IMLRMA, liability and workman's compensation.
Yeah, can you click on that cover page, Joe?
Sure.
So this is we do this annually. This is our invoice for the city's umbrella insurance coverage with the Illinois Municipal League that we hold. Each year, what we're presenting today is to do the min-max option again, which we've done for the past 10 years plus. By doing the min-max option, overpaying just the full premium amount, we save, this year, we save over $38,000 by doing that. We've done that, like I said, for the past 10 years or so. Only 1 year, we've had to, the min-max option, we pay a minimum amount, and if we exceed a certain amount of claims, we may have to pay in more up to a maximum amount. We've only done that once over the past 10 years, and it was in the amount of $6,900. So looking at that, we save around $38,000 per year. It certainly has paid off by going with that min-max option. If we pay early, we also get a 1% discount, which is the $29.45 listed on here as well. So we're recommending that we pay early in November again to get that almost $3,000 discount and proceed with renewing the policy with IML.
Motion to recommend the city council resolution R-2029 and put on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Arnold, second by James. Roll call.
Sorry. Crowe,
Yes.
Wackel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Samowski,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kent.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 9.3, discussion of resolution R-20-30, a resolution allowing employees to receive a 2021 advance from the city to cover HSA deductible costs.
I can speak to this one too. So this is, again, this is a yearly item we have on the agenda at this time. Back in 2015, I believe it was, the city moved to an HSA medical plan option for employees. So there's a high deductible cost attached to this plan. It is $2,800 for a single plan and up to $5,600 for family coverage, sorry. So what we've done in previous years is allow employees to take this amount as a loan on the first pay cycle of January every year and pay it back throughout the 26 pay cycles throughout the year. They sign an agreement that if they were to leave employment or depart from the city for any reason, they would still owe that amount back, that loan back to the city. So we'd recommend that we have that option again to front the money to employees to cover those high deductible expenses if needed early in the year.
Motion to recommend the city council resolution R-2030 and put it on the consent agenda.
Second.
I was gonna say, what's the percentage of employees that take advantage of this?
Probably not.
Off the top of my head, Martin, I want to say it's been around 15 or so per year, but I'd have to get the
The employees are
Doesn't have to be
50%.
exact, I was just looking for an idea.
15 actual employees.
How many? How many do we have employed total?
Right now we have 59 full-time.
25%.
Not everybody elects medical health insurance, so.
Okay, thank you.
Motion by Wackel, second by Arnold. Roll call.
Wackel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Samowski,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Crowe.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on, 9.4, discussion of resolution R-20-31, a resolution adopting the 2021 schedule of meetings.
It's just a housekeeping thing. We're required to do this by state statute. The only thing different from previous years is the planning commission and the zoning board is by necessity versus having a regularly scheduled meeting.
Motion to recommend the city council to approve resolution R 2031, including Exhibit A, and put on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Arnold, seconded by James. Roll call.
James,
Yes.
Samowski,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
and Walker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on, 9.5, discussion of lowest bidders for wastewater treatment plant in Crow Elk Street and Stewart Street lift stations.
So I'll give an overview, but then if you have specific questions, that'd be better to ask Chad. But we had the bid opening on 9/29 at 1 p.m. for the wastewater treatment plant. Donahue had estimated the cost at $9.8 million. There were 5 bidders. We always ask for references of the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder's references were not good at all. So when I found that out, I asked for references for the second lowest bidder, and that was Visory, and those references were good. The price difference between the two is about $250,000. If you click on the bid tab, it'll show you the exact amounts. But I would recommend that Visory is a responsible bidder and Leander is not. So then also Donahue estimated the cost at $1.1 million for the lift station. There were 3 bidders. The lowest bid was $989,298. We asked Donahue again to give references for that lowest bidder, and those references were very good for the lift station. So if you have questions, I have attached the references. I'd rather not read them publicly, but they are attached if anybody wants to look at those, but I will
Now,
tell
are
you
these
they weren't
bids
good.
final?
They are.
I mean, this is it. It's gonna cost us $8,877,000, that's it.
But
Not going over, not finding anything, nothing.
there could be change orders,
This
but
is
what
Donahue.
did you estimate for 10%?
Usually allow for 10% for change orders. Typical for the industry is at 5 to 6%. Usually we're in that 1 to 2%, range.
You want that on the bid. Just wanna make sure. Okay, so this is it, besides that 5 to 6% maybe?
Correct.
Motion to recommend to the city council, Visory Construction Company for $8,877,000 for the wastewater treatment plant improvements, and Fisher Excavating Incorporated for $989,298 for lift station improvements to put on the consent agenda.
Motion by Arnold, second by Rothschild. Roll call, please.
Samowski,
I have a question.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Both of these are being, we've already secured the financing for this. Jan?
So, yeah,
Yeah, so the loan, so this is an IPA loan project. So the next step will be, once the council approves on November 10th, we'll take the bid certification package to the Illinois EPA, and they'll start the final loan process. So you get a loan document sometime November, December. And once you get the loan agreement, sign it, and then we'll get notice of award and notice to proceed out to the contractor and start construction, that December, January timeframe.
What's the time frame to be done then?
It's about a year for construction, a little bit over a year.
Okay. Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Abstain.
Crowe,
Yes.
and Walker,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Moving on, item 9.6, discussion of ordinance O-20-35 through O-20-39, abating of real estate tax in relations to bonds.
This is a housekeeping item that we do every year, and Jamie can answer any questions if you want. This is abating the bonds, Jamie?
Correct. So an abatement on a bond means we have the ability to collect taxes for our bond payments and we abate them, so we don't push that off onto the public.
You good there? No?
Yeah, as long as this is all of them.
It's all of them. Like last year, we double and triple checked.
Motion to send to city council, was that right? Yeah. Ordinances 02035 through 02039 to put on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Arnold, second by James. Roll call.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Wachtel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Sanowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on, item 9.7, discussion of revolving loan fund for caffeine and carbs for $50,000.
So, as you all know, our revolving loan fund is no longer mandated by the state. So the state still wants us to use it for economic development, but we don't have to go through the hoops that we had to before. We have two applications tonight. Kelly Wolf is for caffeine and carbs, and she spoke to you earlier. She's here to answer any questions, but she's looking to borrow $50,000 from the city, 15 from Central Bank, and 25, I believe, is already pre-approved from Henry County. She'll be investing $30,000 of her own money, which puts her at about a 20% down position. We do have a revolving loan fund committee, which is made up of myself, Jamie, John Du Bois from Central Bank, and Bill Dale from Farmers National Bank. And this was approved unanimously by the committee. Ooh, I lost my screen.
Sounds good. I'll make a motion to recommend the city council to approve the revolving loan for Tina Hernandez in the amount of $50,000.
No,
You got the wrong
The
one.
other one up on top. Motion to recommend the city council to approve the revolving loan for Kelly Wolf in the amount of $50,000.
I have a question before we, I'll second it, but I got a question.
Okay.
Revolving loan means she can, if she borrows 50,000 and she pays back 10, she's available 10 more, she has to reapply.
no. It's 50,000 flat, it's 3% interest for 10 years, and there would be no reapplying after she paid back.
So let's say she pays it back next year, let's say she has a booming year and she's got the 50 and she throws it back in. She has to reapply if she wants more money off that, or can somebody else use that? Because it says we only have 100,000 total.
Right.
So we're divvying it up between two businesses that are bringing in, looks like 4 people, maybe 3 people, if that.
They're also bringing in sales tax,
I get
because
that.
all of these are sales tax items.
I get that.
They're also filling spaces, so, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you looking to go next to, Great Revivalist?
Yes. So, at that strip, out by the interstate, I would be next to, in between Great Revivalist and the above the bar dance.
So, it's another business.
That's another business.
I get that.
Wonderful.
So that we have no more revolving loan fund money for the next year then? Or
That's correct.
how does that get refunded? If she pays it back, then we've got more money to spend out, is that how that works?
That's correct.
So we don't come out of the general fund and put more money in there,
No,
as
sir.
soon as they pay this back, we're done.
Right.
And what if it doesn't work for her?
Then she has a personal guarantee, and her equipment as collateral. So,
Okay.
we would go
So
after.
what if that doesn't equal 50?
Well, then we would do what we did with a couple others that defaulted and write it off as a loss.
And then how does that money get back in then? If we write that off as a loss, how does that fund get refunded?
It doesn't.
Doesn't.
Okay. So if we lose 50 Gs and nobody pays any of this back, then we don't have any more revolving loan fund, is that correct?
That's correct, but it's very, very rare that
I
we don't
get it,
get
it's
paid
rare,
back.
but it could happen, I'm just,
And it has.
Okay.
And it happens in every city. Every time you make a loan, you take a risk.
and is 20% the normal, what they risk personally, plus the 50 guarantee?
It just depends. in my previous city, we did 100% because it solved the problem and filled a building. It just, each one is on its own merit.
Actually, part of the loan is through Henry County. Yeah. And I actually asked about that too, so I know that they wanted some of your own personal.
20,000.
Yeah.
So out of $120,000 loan, or whatever it is, you're putting 20 in yourself.
No, 30.
But you're liable for
30,000
all.
or so.
Okay.
It's just that I don't think that Henry County loan is as, I think the interest is a little bit more, isn't it? It's 5, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So this is a good, I mean, this is another way for her to get money.
I like it, we're dividing it over 2 people and now we're done. And we've used the other 40,000 for development too, haven't we?
That was done on a TIF.
But that's all used up for, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's my concern.
But we only have 100,000, you know, and these are 2 really
I know, I'm not
businesses.
disputing that, we're limited in funds, that's why I wanna make sure that,
We had one application in 2015, and then Becker and Becker did one right before I started for 60,000.
yep,
And those are the only 2 in the past 6 years.
Craig, I can,
You're not talking the whole part of that building, you're just talking a percentage of that square footage was, right?
between Revivalist and above the bar, it's open.
I know.
Oh, I'm taking
Well,
one, I'm taking one of each of them, yes.
I was saying, there's a very large amount of square footage in there.
Yes,
Above
I'm
the
building a
bar is
wall.
dance studio.
That's what I thought.
One's taking just one
Yeah.
seat.
Because my daughters go there, between there's a large space that the Limestone was originally gonna brew beer in there, or do a wholesale thing, but they didn't, and now it's the Revivalist, but there's a large space in there. Is it the whole space between?
There's 5 suites, I'm taking one of the 5.
Okay.
That was my question.
Yeah, they must have broken it up.
Yeah.
I thought it was open.
That's what our answer was.
and Craig, if I could just explain the revolving loan fund. So we actually have cash, Becker and Becker, and the Great Revivalists. And as they pay monthly, it increases our revolving loan. So we do continue to build that up. And then the $40,000, I'm actually gonna submit to Cures to try to get reimbursement for that.
So the Revivalist had a revolving loan? Did we pass that?
Limestone had one,
Oh, in Limestone.
and it was assumed by Great Revivalist.
Okay. So it's not 100,000 we have total, how much is it we have total for the revolving loan? Because if you have 2 more out, then that's more money that's still sitting out there, right?
No.
No?
She's talking about available.
We have 100,000 available to loan.
Okay, and what's the total amount then?
Sitting out there, we've got loans with cash, Great Revivalist,
Yes,
Becker and Becker.
cash is around 8,000 left, and Great Revivalist is around 60,000, and Becker and Becker is around 60,000.
Okay. So total budget for this is, what, about 230,000 we have total that we're dispersing?
Well,
I'm trying to figure out where this fund came
Okay,
from.
we already dispersed all but 100.
I get that.
And the
We
funds
But if you
still
didn't
flow.
disperse any of it, how much does it start with? That's what I'm asking.
Well, the loan, this program started back in 2006.
And that was from the state of Illinois.
They gave
Okay.
us the seed money,
Okay. That's what I'm
and,
asking.
and now it's no longer mandated, so.
Okay. So if anybody else comes into the business, they can't use this because we're tapped.
Right, they
Okay.
would look at TIF or facade or our TIF with utilities or something like that.
But you do have money coming back as it's paid from the other ones we already did.
Correct. Monthly, they have a payment that they have to make, so we're building it back up monthly.
But also too, that means that the city doesn't have any, but I know Henry County does. They have a lot.
Okay.
So there are opportunities for businesses to borrow money.
Yeah, I don't mind
And,
doing this, I just want to make sure we got some available somewhere
and
else.
actually with COVID, they got actually COVID funds as well. And so those, if you ask for a loan for that, say you were doing something to your business to make it under this circumstance or whatever, those didn't have to even get paid for a year, or something like that. They were making, if those were specific.
Is that part of the last project where we have checks and stuff? Was that part of that? What
No,
you're saying?
no,
That's different?
this is all through the county.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Motion by Wachtel, second by Arnold.
Yes.
Roll call?
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Wachtel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Samowski,
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
I wonder if she could deliver.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on, item 9.8, discussion of revolving loan fund for Nosh Good Mood Food LLC for $50,000.
Just wanted to say thank you, everybody, before I left.
Thank you.
So these are the exact same terms, 50,000, 3% interest over 10 years fixed. Tina has a long time record as a marketing veteran, has owned franchises before, and this loan would also be secured by equipment. And it says second mortgage, but we are going to, and Tina, I apologize because I haven't even discussed it with you, but do a personal guarantee instead of a second mortgage, which is easier to record. If you have any questions for Tina?
Where is this located?
On Oakwood?
In the front part.
Oh, this is in front of Gary's Deli?
Yes.
Yeah,
I thought the farm was a bedding place. That's gone now?
yeah.
Yeah,
It didn't
he
make it
closed
through.
it.
Wow.
It didn't make it through.
Okay, all right, I know where it's at.
I already did it once, I want to do it again. Motion to recommend the city council to approve the revolving loan for Tina Hernandez in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
Motion by Wachtel, second by James. Roll call?
Kenneth,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Wachtel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Samowski,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Rothschild.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Moving on to item 9.9, discussion of the 2021 budget.
So I'm gonna just review over, there were some slight changes, and then kind of revenue over expenses where we're gonna end up. So in the general fund, the only change that was made here was Casey lowered his uniforms down because he's gonna actually be hiring his officers this fiscal year instead of next fiscal year. So it will decrease his expenses in there. You wanna lower it down to the
You wanna
bottom?
show, so we open at,
No.
no, is that okay? No, she's very specific. And when?
Okay, so right here, it shows that we are going to, I don't think you have the right one up. We're gonna end 17,000 to the good.
This is 12,000.
You know what, if this agenda wasn't refreshed,
And I printed them all.
It's just the $6,000 difference in Casey's uniforms. So I wanna say it's around 17,000 to the
You
good.
missed it.
Jamie, the money that's coming in right now, that's gonna dictate our budget coming up, are we on line to where our projections of where we thought we would be?
We are above.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, they've been doing a really nice job putting together periodic summaries, so pay close attention to the emails. They send that information out, I think.
This one
Everybody finds
was
it
the one that we did 10% down from sales tax.
Correct.
And we're not down from sales tax yet this year?
Sales tax, we were down in just sales tax 2%.
And the worst months come in yet? I don't know where we're at with the dates.
That's so hard to say. I mean,
I know,
A month ago,
we're
we
3
thought-
months, is
we
it
might have
3
thought-
months, 4 months, I don't know what it
we
is.
might have thought the worst months were behind us, but now with what's going on in the country right now, it's hard to really say, are they ahead of us?
So we adjusted the budget for this 6 months for 40%, right, or is it 20%? What do we do?
We did
10%, for, not the coming
No,
month.
the 6
Oh,
months.
sorry.
6 month was 40.
40.
Yeah.
And we're only down 2?
Correct.
Okay.
It's okay.
In
That's
sales tax, and the other taxes were down only 1.1.
But we didn't forecast those to be down, did we?
We did,
Did we? 40 all across the board?
correct.
Well, that's good.
We weren't taking any chances.
That's right.
There was so much unknown. I mean,
Rather be be
It
conservative.
helped us keep our bond rating,
There's
so.
still a lot of
I
unknowns,
would
but
say there's a lot of unknowns. We're not gonna know our final tally for what, a year and a half, 2 years to come?
Most of us will be gone.
I would say at least a year. I don't
Thanks.
know.
Ow.
You, Johnny?
We don't know what this, it could be, the next 5 years could be
Yeah,
terrible.
not sure.
Could be good, could
You
be
want me
good.
to move on to?
Sure, and then the A police didn't change at all. We're going to be finishing 2,500 to the good. B police, we're gonna be spending 2,600 in the B police fund. Those are revenues that we can never count on, so revenues are gonna show really low.
Now, one question I have is, this year's is, what's the budget amount? What,
And B police?
no, of total. That one.
That's the general.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about, though. Your,
Revenues are.
which one is last year's, and how are we comparing to, are we 10% from this 6-month budget? Or are we 10% from an annual budget?
We did, yeah.
Because the 6-month, we did it at 40%. Is the year based on the 10% off of 40%, or the year off a normal?
It's based off of 5-year average and then 10% reduction.
Okay.
So each year it goes up and down. There isn't a steady incline or decline. So it's over 5 years.
Okay. So we're down about 400,000 from a normal, or what would we consider a normal budget? Because this was, what, 3 million? No, what is it?
you're saying we're down to about 400,000 in assumption.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? What's a normal budget total for the year? Spending,
Like overall, between
Yeah.
all of the funds,
Yeah.
it's usually like 20 million.
okay, so we're 2 million under that. Is that what we projected it at?
No, because we only projected the decrease in taxes.
Tax.
Yes.
So you can't really just carry that equally across.
Right,
Well, I'm not
expenses
looking for
went up.
detailed, I'm just looking for,
Yeah.
his costs go up.
No, but
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
I want to say it was roughly going to be around 400,000 in the general fund if we had full revenues come in, is
Okay.
what I predicted.
that's the only distinction I was trying to make. That's the important part to look at, is that the general fund and not the budget as a whole that encompasses all the enterprise funds and everything else.
Yeah.
That's gonna, what's that?
No, go ahead.
That's just gonna totally, I understood your question and your mindset of where you're programmed, but you're not.
And just, do we have an idea of how much each department took out for capital projects?
We did.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had exact number.
How much, not how much is in the budget, how much they took out and didn't put in the budget on a normal. If we're only down 10%, you know what I mean?
Oh, you mean
So
the
it's-
capital items that we decided
Not
not
to
to do?
do, yeah,
That
like
they should-
electric or,
Like they should be doing?
yeah, like paving the streets or doing the telephone poles or whatever they came up with.
Most of
Do we
the
have a
stuff,
ballpark?
well, most of the stuff, when we did the capital improvement plan. What? Closer.
There you go.
Most of the items when we did the capital improvement plan, the capital improvement plan was done in January, of course, COVID hit in March. But, a lot of stuff had already gotten moved to like 2022 and 23 because we wanted the enterprise funds to start building a reserve. And so we kind of pushed things off, even before COVID.
I understand that, but we put stuff off, so in 2022, 23, do we have to make up more to include those projects? Because you don't want to get behind in the capital projects, you know what I'm saying? You want to put off what you have to, but you can only put the telephone poles off so long they're gonna fall.
Right, so if you look in your capital improvement plan, it shows, how come I have to talk closer to
Because
you?
you can talk, I've got a loud voice.
Um,
And
so
it's utility poles.
if you look at it, you'll see it shows a line with the revenue and it shows a line with the expenses. And I talked about how sometimes those are inverted. And so that's why we looked at electrical revenues. And we think water and sewer are gonna be, you know, kind of running
It should be fine.
flush, but not building reserves.
I thought we increased the rate to build the reserves.
You increased the rate before I ever came, and that wasn't to build reserves, it was to cover costs,
So we need to look at that as well next year then?
Well,
or the year after.
yeah, and I mean, there are other things that come into play with potentially bonds that'll come due and how we reappropriate those funds once they're paid off and stuff like that. But I think the important thing about your discussion, and that I would agree with, is the fact, and not so much with the enterprise funds, because they have the ability to somewhat sustain their capital needs, and that's part of the tone I tried to set. I have an ever increasing concern of the future of the general fund, because we're gonna get to this agenda item of the cemetery, or we haven't even got to the police pension portion of the taxing of the levy, and we are running out of breathing room with general fund within the next several years. So yes, your question, I have great concerns with the future of capital improvements, projects, and the things like paving of streets and the things that come out of general fund that the citizens want, yes.
Okay, but do we have an estimate or an idea of how much we would need to increase revenue next year to the general fund to get back on course with capital projects as we put off this year, or next year?
Well, capital projects aren't always paid out of the general fund, they're paid out of the capital
Okay,
improvement
but I'm
fund.
just saying, whatever fund they come out of, or however, do we know how much we need to increase, or an idea?
Well, I think the more, and correct me anybody if I'm wrong, I think the more appropriate way to look at that is I think the council needs to determine what their commitment to their funding of general fund capital type projects, and at that point, some of that money may be able to be coincided with MFT, depending on the type of project or the scope of the project. But I think it's hard to say, what projects do we want to do and what are they going to cost? I get the thought, but it's really a pledge to us on what we want to have and then how we can best utilize that money at the time with what's available, like we just did with the park, per se. Had we been sitting on, and we do have capital committed money, but we also have looming deadline, I guess would be the right way to say, on other revenues we're gonna bring in and how we utilize them. So it takes a commitment from us on what we want on capital. Am I wrong, Joe? Or I mean, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No, but there should be, isn't there a 5-year capital project?
There is, and they just,
Plan, and you put some of that off.
they just recently redid the capital plan. And I think the department heads are doing a diligent job of doing the best they can of knowing the reality they live in.
I agree.
And trying to come up with a realistic plan, but I also venture to guess if you were to ask Chad, where are we on the list of things that, I'm not even gonna say wanna do, but need to be done, he'd probably tell you to sit down and put your feet up, because we're gonna have a conversation. And I know that, because I had that, and that concerns me.
Well, actually, when we did the capital improvement plan, like I said, most things got pushed off to 22 and 23. So it's not looking at this budget, I can't say what revenues do we need to cover that, because we're going to have to know where we're at that point.
Okay, I understand that, but you're pushing things off to 20, 22, 23. What if 22 comes, what if this virus is, God forbid, still with us, and we're tight
Or
on,
a different virus.
We'll have
or
a
whatever?
different year from now.
What's that?
We'll have a different one every year from now.
Okay, then, I mean, you can't put them off forever. And that's what I'm saying, is there any goal for revenue generation that we should set for next year, so that we can get those capital projects for all the departments back on track for 2022? I think we agree that 2021 is good, the balance is good, everything seems to be good, but we're basing it on 10% revenue decrease in taxes. What if it ends up being 40%? Or what if it ends up being plus, a huge year?
As mayor, I would set this as a goal for this body. Number one, I know the staff is gonna work incredibly hard in economic development. We've talked about it, and they're gonna give it everything they have. And I hope for the best, like everybody on here, because I know I've talked to some of these fellow council people that have been on for a long period of time that have said, everybody's always been hopeful of the yielding results of economic development. We can all argue to what varying degree that's had on this community over the last window of time. So I'm not saying we close the door, we definitely go full steam ahead with that, but what this council needs to do, and the only way for this staff to function efficiently and to answer some of these types of questions you're asking, and I tried to set the tone when I said we need to look at every fee and make sure we're charging properly. We don't want to be the highest, we want to remain attractive, but before we're passing a tax increase to any citizen, we should be charging properly, albeit a building permit or anything else. So one, I would say as a council, we pledge to continue continue to work through all those things and make sure we're charging properly where we should. Second thing is we need to sort through some of these issues that are difficult to some and figure out where we stand with them. Because if they're 100% off the table on other revenue sources, then that's a whole new calculus for this staff to figure out. And that is how you answer these questions going forward. Because if we're gonna be no on a lot of these things, albeit a tax increase or some sort of gaming tax revenue, and I'm not soliciting or suggesting or implying we're gonna have that discussion, but we have to decide if they're 100% off the table, not only does the council have to be aware that limits what you can do and what we're gonna be able to do, because we're ultimately accountable to the citizens. So when we start to run out of money and we're not used to doing the projects we used to do, and we have to entertain discussions like 9.11 on what do we do with the cemetery, they're all interrelated. And I only stress this so hard, and I appreciate all the effort everybody on council puts on it. But I only stress it so hard, and I may seem more passionate about it because I'm down here every day talking with the staff about these problems. And it's easy to leave this meeting tonight and go home and say we don't want to deal with it right now, or I don't want to take the grief that we're going to get from the citizens over that. I cannot stress that door is closing. And it's not a doomsday scenario, it's not what I'm implying, but we need to deal with these things sooner than later. So I think that's what we need to do as a council. We need to go through things, we need to give them the proper time, the proper thought, and think about, I had an interesting discussion real quick with one of the members of the public after the last meeting. And we had a conversation about what the impacts on certain things could be to the citizen body as a whole. But we also have to understand what the impacts can be to the citizen body as a whole to not deal with some of these things. And I don't dismiss how one item can impact a minority of people or a small group of people or what have you. I don't dismiss that, what that impact may be. But we're talking about things that are gonna affect the citizen as a whole, every single one of us. So there's two sides to every coin, and it's ever more important that if we're gonna say no, like you said, Craig, to some of these things, then we've gotta come up with other answers. Because I wouldn't wanna be on that council in about 5 or 10 years. Because do you think we have all faced hard decisions?
And Sean, that's exactly the point I made not long ago. I said that the decisions we make today, we're gonna know 10 years from now if we made the right decisions.
Yeah.
But we can't be afraid to look forward 10 years from now and see where we should be.
Right.
If we don't do that, if we're just living for this council for today, for this week, for this year, we're not doing ourselves or the citizens of Geneseo any favors. We shouldn't be up here. If we can't look 10 years down the road and figure out a path of how to get where we need to get, then we as a council should not be here.
Yeah, and that's why I set the tone. I mean, I appreciate, albeit we are surviving this to a certain degree okay right now. And you know, when you look at our budget as a whole, there is health there. So I want to stress that to the public, but you cannot put off dealing with revenue issues and other things and consume that health, because then you end up with two problems. All of a sudden, you don't have that cushion to consume anymore. Like we did some of the steps by paying health insurance out of Fund 70 and things like that. If you start to rely on those things, or to not do capital and redirect money to general fund, you start doing that, pretty soon those funds aren't there and you're still left with the same problem at the end of the day. So we're in a good place at the moment, we have a good attitude and we're working hard, but I just would like a pledge from every single one of you to really, really, if no's the answer to something, then we have to have a counter. So I got off on a bit of a tangent,
But the bottom line is just like with this COVID, we're not gonna have every answer.
no, but we have answers and things that are in front of us.
I understand that. But
That's just it.
he's talking into the future, and we don't know the future. We didn't know that this was it.
But you have to plan for the
We
future.
have, it's up to us to set our future to a certain degree too.
I know that. I said, I'm just saying you cannot plan down to the gnat's whistle.
I couldn't agree more, and that's the one thing, when we chose the 10% assumption that, because me and Joe had a discussion, and albeit she was a bit higher, she was at 15%, I said, you know what we've learned from COVID is we have to pick a reasonable assumption, okay? Because we picked 10, and there could be a different plague of some nature that ends up being 1,000 times worse, God forbid, and that 10% assumption won't even mean a thing. So we've all learned that even if we get back to a role where we're passing budgets on a yearly basis, and we're back to rolling with projects and revenues, and we feel like we were 2 years ago, rug can come out from under you like that. So we still need to plan, we still need to work through these things. But yeah, we don't know.
Fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Exactly. So,
And I'm not saying that we're going to do it nickel and dime it, I'm just asking for ballpark.
but I think it's important.
But have we seen the new 5-year capital project plan revised? Is that somewhere that I missed?
No, it's not,
Thank you.
it's not out yet.
I'm sorry, I've seen it.
Okay.
And if I can just, if I can explain the general fund, I think that there's a little confusion with the general fund. So we don't do any kind of capital out there. That's your police officers out on the street. That's your cemetery being taken care of, parks being taken care of, road that is. That's actually maintaining the city. So none of the stuff in general fund is for that. I think the big thing to keep in mind is your taxes are gonna continue to go up in the area of police pension, and your streets aren't gonna be able to be taken care of as well as they need to be. Same with some of the other things. We're gonna have to decrease in other areas because we spent so many years not paying for our police pension.
And that's an important distinction, but I guess I work on broader terms that the two are interrelated, because in the day that the police departments or the public works is not maintaining the streets to their level they are able to on a yearly basis via general fund, what happens when that street's 100% deteriorated and gone? Then you lead to a new capital project because you have to do a complete replacement or something like that. So that's why, to me, these distinctions are important so the public is clear and we're all clear what funds do what, but they're so interrelated.
But the general fund too, if you're not maintaining it, we're not gonna bring more people that wanna live here because it's not maintained properly, correct?
The city not being maintained.
Yeah, the
correctly.
streets aren't good, schools aren't good.
Right now,
everything
yes,
costs.
people appreciate the service we are able to bring to them, albeit a police officer on the street 24/7, electricity that's out less than 10 minutes when other communities are out for days.
Yeah,
They appreciate all those things, yes.
okay.
Okay, so moving on to fee fund,
I think we did beat.
we did fee fund. Okay, D.
D, again, we can't count on any type of revenues to come in from this, so we budget very little for D.
Hey, can I ask one question, please?
Yes.
Hey, Casey, so we're not having a second K-9?
The plan that is probably being moved forward with is retiring Cato and giving Ozzy to Geneseo.
Okay, but wasn't the second K-9 funded by federal funds or government funds or something?
Second was donations from Cosrich out here and Henry County State's Attorney.
Okay, so we used all those, right? So we're not getting those again for a second K-9?
No, we would not get those again for a second.
Okay. Thank you.
The next fund is the Workman's Comp Fund. So this is Workman's Comp that is paid solely by the taxes collected, and it's to cover Workman's Comp for those employees that are in the general fund. The next one is Social Security. It works the same way. It pays the Social Security from those employed in the general fund. And IMRF is the same as the other two. It pays the retirement for those employees. And next is just a pass-through fund. It is the bond for City Hall. So basically, we have to expense it out of the general fund, move it in here, and then we pay it out of here. And the next one is Cemetery Perpetual Care.
Does that have a fund to it, this the perpetual care one cemetery?
It's just any kind of large maintenance that's gonna be done. So removing trees, roads, going into the cemetery, that's what that fund is for.
But mowing it and maintaining it comes out of the general fund.
Correct.
Okay.
The next one is motor fuel. These are allotments that were given from the state. I mean, we don't really have a whole lot planned for that. We do have a project that we're going to have to be doing in the next couple of years because they're giving us grant allotments. So I would anticipate in 22, 23.
25, we have to have a project completion.
Okay.
For what? They're releasing, greater funds, and I forget the exact name of it, I'm sorry. but by 2025, we have to have a project of the funds that we've been getting the last year. So it's roughly, I believe you're gonna bring us in $300,000, and then we would have to get a project established that meets their criteria, and then have that project completed by 2025.
Is that like a highway or something, or a road, or is it
Uh,
substructure, or what is it?
Yeah, so it's similar to like the Northeast Drainage District. Actually, we're getting the information tomorrow on exactly what the criteria is gonna be. The engineers are sending it over to us, and then we'll start reviewing them, and then we'll try to get a project going from that.
Fuel depot?
Yep, so the fuel depot is, our fuel depot, and it's us using the fuel. We did increase the usage, that we charge ourselves, so that way we can replenish the fund. Otherwise, we don't really have any projects in there, we just have how much it costs for the fuel usage, and then how much we charge for fuel usage, and with a little bit of maintenance.
Now, the hotel motel tax, are we online with that, with whatever other people are charging?
That's
It's-
state mandated.
Yeah, it's whatever, the hotel motel tax is basically how many ever people that they have stay there, whatever taxes they collect, they have to give a portion to the city.
Okay, but I mean, is that tax rate, the state sets, correct?
Yes.
And then we get a second portion of that.
Right.
And everybody gets the same portion wherever those hotels, motels are.
Correct. And they are down a little bit because people aren't traveling as much.
Sure.
And you can stop me and if you guys have more questions about the fund. The next one is economic development. This again is for your Save-A-Lot TIF agreement, Hancock TIF agreement, and then any kind of new agreements that we have will pass through here. Revolving loan, you guys know what that is? Yeah, and I don't have that budgeted in this year for the 100,000 because it was the 6 month.
Oh, that'll come out of this year's, the 6 month, right?
Correct. All right, I'm gonna let Eric do electric.
Thank you, Jamie. So when I was preparing this budget, the one thing I wanted to do is make sure that we had our revenue to amounts that we can hit or exceed. Because in the past, what we've been doing is they were budgeting $8 million and we brought 6.8 million in. So we brought those numbers down even with our rate increase. So these are numbers I believe that we can hit and exceed so that we can kind of go over. So you can see we're about $7.5 million in revenue. Things that we have going on, things that we should have going on. Cooling water fund, we do have a new monitoring control system that needs to be put in and some piping. Lubricating oil, we have to buy 1,000 gallons of lube oil at one time. That is for storage, that is for topping off engines. So you'll see an increase in that expense. Structures and improvement, we're looking to replace a 10-year-old zero-turn mower this year. Engineering supervision, every 3 years we have to do EPA testing for rice NESHAP. So that's about $44,000. So you'll see an increase in that.
What are the different colors?
Um,
The blue is this year?
the blue is, I believe, 20?
The purple is, from 19, the green is actual, and
Yeah.
then the blue is our 6 month,
Yeah.
and the orange is.
So that was 19's budget, 19's actual 6 month.
The green is 6 month actual, 6 month budget is that blue color.
Correct.
And then that should be, the purplish color should be fiscal year 20, right? 19, 20.
Yeah.
We also have our fiber optics. We have to move the fiber from the power plant to the front office and move it underground. It's kind of part of our 4160, 12470 conversion, putting stuff underground. So we did raise that up a little bit because we have some splicing we have to do and do that. for capital projects, if you want to scroll down, we have Circuit 2 out of the power plant, which is a 4160, 12470 conversion project. So if you look down Main Street, you can see that we're changing out a lot of poles. We're making the infrastructure a lot better. We're trimming trees back, doing all that kind of stuff. So this will be Circuit 2, basically from the power plant, from First Street to Pearl Street to Stewart Street. That area will be attacked this time. And then the following year, we'll do north of the tracks and do the same thing. And then we'll have 1 voltage when this project's all done in 23, I believe. Good.
This kind of backs up, and I'm sorry, I should
No,
have
that's fine.
said sooner. Those bonds that are sitting out there at the top, right underneath revenues.
Yep.
Does anybody know when those are paid off?
26 and 27, I believe.
Okay, I just, which would make sense. So we've got,
It's roughly $600,000,
yeah.
$650,000.
So from 2019 to 2020, our expenditures are over $1 million more.
So this is if we were to spend everything out of this budget, every penny, and if we were at 7.4. This is where we average out most years. And we will probably come in under that, because we don't spend everything out of every line item.
I get that, but so we ended 2018 at 6.5 million.
But we also cut all our capital projects that year. So that was down, because we had budgeted, I want to say $800,000 in capital that year. And we cut those, and we pulled a lot back from our operating budget.
Okay. Yeah, my only concern is, and this is previous administrations that I'll talk, that we approved something, and then it was over, and then we had some capital projects in there, and then all of a sudden we come back and go, why is this so much? Well, you approved it in the budget.
Yeah.
So I wanna make sure that I'm seeing a real budget.
This is as real as I can get it,
Okay.
because, you know, what we're gonna be looking at is making sure that we're hitting our marks every month with revenue coming in.
Okay.
And if we're not hitting those marks, we're gonna have to pull back from our operating budget.
And how much capital project did you pull out of this to get was this 7.4? Does that include all the capital projects you would have wanted to do in a normal year?
Yeah, so this is what we would normally do in this year. And we have a 7-year plan that we came out with, and we will go over it. And if something comes up where we have to replace something, we might put that in place of a project that is up for next year or that. But
So
we are comfortable with what we are currently doing.
at 7.5 million.
Yep.
And is that taking, how much of that capital projects are you putting on hold because of the 10% drop?
We're not putting anything on hold right now. These are some of these projects. So for account 1223, which is a capital asset expense, these are projects that we were going to do in 1920 that we are putting on now. So we have Unit 8's panel upgrade. We have the generator testing, which we will test the generator, the cables, the grounding transformers, and do that. So we are making up what we didn't do in the previous years.
Craig, just a point of clarity now, reminder, enterprise fund, revenue over expenses like a business, there's no assumption of a 10% loss like there is attached to sales tax with general funds.
so they make their own money.
I get that, I didn't know if there was, he said that in the past had been 8 million forecasted and they came in at 6 million for revenue. And then I see 6.5 million, and I see 7.5 million.
Well,
But we also have
expenditures.
also keep in mind, purple is the actual, not what was budgeted.
Yeah,
No, I get that.
Okay.
that was
I'm seeing
actual.
The yellow, which is budgeted for next year, that's $1 million over expenditures from last year.
Right, because last year some projects didn't get done and he
About
pushed them
800,000.
into this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the only thing that can affect your budget is that if electric is not as high because of, you know, like you had said, like the
Usage.
schools.
Yeah.
Usage.
And when I was
That's-
doing the revenue, I
yeah.
looked at that and brought that down, knowing that there's some of them I don't think that are gonna hit it. You know, the
So-
schools, the churches, residential is pretty steady right now.
Right.
So, but those are the accounts that we're gonna be looking at monthly to make sure that we're hitting our marks.
Continue. Good job, Eric.
Yeah, great.
Jamie, did you want to talk about electric meter deposits and refuse?
For electric meter deposits, the big thing that you're gonna see is as we refund those individuals that qualify for the deposit refund, the fund balance will go down. So that's really the only change in there. For refuse, again, you'll notice that we finished 6,000 to the good, but in the next couple of years, you'll notice that we are gonna finish to the bad because our original contract revenues are gonna come in higher, and then at the end of it, we're spending more money. So it should even itself out over the contract term.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Nope.
Okay, so the contract with Republic was a 5-year contract, and they charged us a certain amount each year, not the same amount, but instead of us changing the cost each year to the public, we averaged it. So in the beginning of the first 2 and 3 years, we collected more than what they charged us. Toward the end, we're collecting less, but it all averages out to be equal. Does that make sense?
It just looks funny in different budget years.
It does, but it's better than changing the rate for customers every single year. So we just did the
And what's our
average.
contract up with Republic?
2 more years?
I'm not so sure about that. There's other options, I think.
The next fund is water, and I'm gonna let Chad do that one.
So water and sewer is pretty much the same as like what Eric talked. We have redone a lot of our numbers in the past, so we've been taking our averages and making them realistic numbers. On the biggest thing with the water is we've increased some of our operating expenses, and you'll mainly see, well, one of the first things is our salaries will be significantly lower. We had an elder employee retire at a higher wage, and then we've hired in a newer, less certified employee. So you'll see a savings in the salaries there. We have increased a couple of the structures and improvements greater than what we normally do, and then also a fixed well pumps. Those are for rehabilitation of wells. Usually about every 3 years we have to pull a well and chemically and mechanically clean the well.
And a well's not a lift station, right?
Oh, well, no, that is our raw water that we pump to the iron removal plants to send to town for.
So we have our own well, Geneseo has its own well.
We have multiple,
Wells.
4 wells,
Okay.
4 wells. And then basically, our capital assets, we also, like electric, we have a capital asset expense line item. We have $150,000 set up for this next upcoming year. That is for some piping and rehabilitation of some valves and stuff downtown, or not downtown, sorry, by Route 6 and like hometown, we have a main that comes through there, and we have some valves that have broken over the past couple of years, and some piping down by the Moose and so forth that we want to get changed out and omit some older main and so forth. So basically, that is all we have scheduled for this upcoming year in water funds. You can see as of, we ran to the good last year, we're only projected, this 6-month budget, we're projected to be like 91,000, the whole we're sitting 8,700 ahead, but we have not spent any capital money yet. We're still getting some prices and stuff on some panel and electrical upgrades that we had scheduled to be at the iron removal plant. The other capital thing we had planned for this year was we were gonna replace a NPK jackhammer, and we didn't replace that. It's not a necessity at this time, so we're gonna hold off on it. Does anyone have any questions on the water portion?
Yeah, what capital projects did you put off in this budget that you moved into next year's budget?
So,
Eric said you got everything in.
so what I'll do is when it comes to like this year, it shows we're gonna run 91,000 a hole. When we did our capital assets book, we put everything in there that we want, and then sometimes it always isn't necessarily a necessity, so we might move those dates around, and then we'll base upon everything off projections. So like when we first did it, we might have had like along with Eric, we had higher numbers. So when we start pulling stuff back into realistic numbers and we start looking at everything, and then with COVID hitting, we try to play the game what we watch, but our target goal is still gonna be what's on our capital list, you know?
So you're still on pace with what needs to be done and to maintain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, everything on the operating side is just basically all maintenance items. You know, our biggest capital stuff would be, like if you redo a well, or you build a new well, or you build a new treatment plant, it's gonna be a big bonded thing. You know, and usually those come by mandates from the EPA or stuff like that.
Okay.
Fund 35 sewer, we have done the same thing on revenues. If you go down, the biggest thing we've added is structures and improvements we've increased. We have some work that we might have to get done over at the lagoon before we start the major improvement. That would just be cleaning excess solids that are in the lagoon and so forth. We did add a safety equipment line item this year. We did increase.
What safety equipment is it?
So we just like pulled like certain things like this year we have some 4 gas monitor systems for when we enter manholes and stuff. They're getting roughly 7-8 years old, so we want to get those updated.
Okay.
We did increase the dewatering back up to the normal $30,000. So basically what we've been doing is it's a kind of like a cushion if we've had issues with anything with the big A that could go wrong before we get the press installed in the new improvements. We had a line item to basically repair that big A. Currently the big A has some issues with it, so we're kind of looking into it, and we might have to press possibly this fall, hire a company to come in and haul our liquid out, or hire a press to come in. We might have to do it next spring too. We don't know for sure. We're still waiting on some mechanics to tell us exactly what's wrong with it. So we try to keep that cushion in there. Pretty much.
The press that you mentioned, does that replace what you used to do with that truck?
Yep.
Okay, so we don't have that truck anymore.
We do. We're still having to haul our sludge. We still have the 1985 Big A. We're still running it. We've been sticking some money in it to get it limped along. And like we said, we've been in the process of 3 years of getting the loan done and getting the wastewater treatment plant finished. So we've been maintaining it and keeping it alive. So
It's a lot.
So the press doesn't totally replace it, it just kind of supplements what you
No,
were
the
doing.
press is 100% replacement of the truck. So that is one type of treatment process that'll get changed. We'll be going from, our permit is we land apply everything. Then our permit will get changed to land filling. So we will just, after we press it, it'll go into dumpsters, and then it'll get taken to the landfill and then disposed of. So that will be one of our first things we try to get done. So in the springtime, if they get started, we get the press in. Maybe we can hold enough storage to not have to spend money on hauling. We do have currently we have the $350,000 in there for the Ash Street lift station. We'll see when the timing works out. Both those water and sewer did get hit on the 6-month budget. It's kind of false numbers because you don't have everything spelled out over a year of your normal operating. And then next year, like it shows we're 168,000 the whole this year estimated, and then next year it shows we're gonna be like 299,000 to the good. We do have this next year's biggest thing is our mapping system is very poor for the wastewater department. We're working with a company on getting some pricing of coming in and televising all the sewers and locating all the sewers and everything. So that'd be completed, and then our other thing would be a replacement of a pickup and converting into a utility truck, so we can be more efficient in our operations instead of hauling stuff in buckets and tools in buckets and so forth. So it looks pretty good. I mean, our numbers look fairly good right now. So I think we'll do good.
So the rate increase, that's already taken place?
Yeah, so every, yep.
But that's on par with.
July will be the next rate increase, because we did all of our rate increases based on the fiscal year then.
Okay.
So like in July, we have a 12% increase.
And that's fixed in here as well?
We got those numbers fixed in. Like Eric and I both, we went back and looked at our averages. Our goal is not to cheat ourselves out of revenue. We want to make sure if we're under, so we would have extra money come in.
But the rate increase was correct for what you're planning for?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, we figured those numbers in.
All right. Looks good.
What's that? Oh.
You know, I never asked this, Kenny, but this is the very first budget we're doing, January to December.
Correct.
Was that easier for you? Was it more of a challenge, or you just don't know yet? Kind of, you know what I mean? I never asked you that. I mean, wait a minute, wasn't easy. I know these aren't easy, so, I mean, I didn't mean it that way. I just meant,
I mean, it
Was
was
it
crazy this
easier
year because
to-
I was doing audit along with budget, but it
yeah,
will be much easier in the future because audit won't be now until March
right.
going forward.
Yeah, I realized it was, but I just wondered, what I meant was it easier because the revenues, you kind of know when they're coming in? I mean, it made more sense? 'Cause
It was easier as far as the tax levy. I wasn't guessing what we were gonna levy. So with the calendar year, I'm gonna know every single year what we're gonna levy. It's gonna be easier with MFT also. And insurance, yep, health insurance. Before I was guesstimating 15% increase, and now I'll actually know what the increase is.
Yeah, I never asked for that before, you know. Sorry.
And what's the levy on this one? What do we put in here?
That's gonna be in November.
Oh, sorry.
All right, the next one is Article 36. Again, it's similar to the A/B accounts. We don't really expect a whole lot to come in here, and we don't really expense a whole lot in here either. Then we're at the 82 Bester Drive TIF. This is the TIF that pays for the Save-A-Lot agreement. So we know what our property taxes are coming in, and then we know what our expenses will be. Then we're at the Route 6. The only difference in here, which I explained last time, is we did budget $100,000 for infrastructure improvements. So it's gonna be Route 6 and then Route 6 and Route 82 that are gonna combine together for some infrastructure improvements on the water issues that are down by the car lots.
Stormwater.
For downtown, the only big change is gonna be, we added $160,000 for the budget for sidewalk repair. So we have money that we're gonna actually spend on a sidewalk repair. Otherwise, we did budget for some facade. So
facade improvements.
How's Limestone on the South Route 82? This is downtown? Am I on the wrong page? Is that page?
Lionstone's in Route 82, so downtown was the other one
Oh,
that I was talking about.
okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
Then the Route 82, Lionstone, we no longer have the agreement with them, or it is expired, so now we're just collecting in some of those property taxes, and we're able to spend some of that money on infrastructure if needed. All right, rely on all my notes for capital. So for capital, I left your revenues aside from non-home rule as steady because your utility tax, telecom, NICOR, those taxes are not gonna decrease. But I did decrease the non-home rule, local sales option 10%, similar to what I did in the general fund. The 19,000 for professional services is for the codification.
It's the review of all of our code, so it has never been legally reviewed. It's been codified, which just means it's put in a book and it's put on the website. But you generally, and you speak up at any point, but usually you do a legal review every 5 to 10 years, and we have no record of ever doing a legal review.
So what do? They just look at it, or they see if it's
doesn't require a vote, and I'm a little concerned that we can put this up for vote. It may get approved, it may not.